I'll get to it.
Yeah.
Not high priority right now. Hi, Steve.
What's up, kiddo?
Just finished the junior high school baseball game. I'm going home.
Okay.
They lost.
Oh, God.
I've seen you so many times today, Mayor.
Yes, it's been like family, huh?
Hey, how are you, sir? Good. How you doing? Nice to see you.
Long time no see.
How are you? Nice to see you. How you doing? All right? How you folks doing? All right? Good.
Shanghai, sure.
Yes.
Sandra in the picture.
Yes, I spoke with her.
I'll never say anything again.
What's that?
I'll never say anything again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She's not here.
I was praying for her.
I hate when I'm in the end.
I didn't bring water, I didn't bring a cup of coffee, because I thought I'd be home in time to do it. Oh, well.
Oh, thank you. So we have an extra seat. Thank you.
Which seat do you want? Which seat is better for you? Okay. Switch them around? Yes? Okay, good. All right. You got it.
Just want to make sure everyone's situated. Is everyone good? Yep. Diana, you're good? Ben?
We're set. I will open the meeting.
All right, I'm just gonna. Okay. Good evening, everyone. I call this meeting of the Township of Union Planning Board to order, April 24th, 2025. Open Public Meetings Act statement, please.
Pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Law, notice of this meeting stating the time and place was satisfied by the filing of an annual notice with the local source and the Star Ledger, newspapers of general circulation within the Township of Union, and posted on the bulletin board of the Township of Union Municipal Building.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Alexander?
Here.
Mr. Cohen?
Here.
Ms. Espinoza? Here. Mr. Frayne?
Here.
Mr. Miller?
Here.
Ms. Perkins?
Here.
Mayor Bowser?
Here.
Committeewoman Terrell? Ms. Khan?
Here.
Ms. Kalid? Chairman Lee?
Here. Can we swear in the engineer?
You raise your right hand. You swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do.
The next item up on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the February 27th meeting. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Frayne. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Miller. Roll call, please.
Is this a resolution of denial?
No, this
Chairman?
is the minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me. I've got a paper ahead of myself. Pardon me. On that kind of a day. Great, I'll be with you one second. Okay, where are my papers? Minutes of the meeting from February to March, that there was no meeting, right? Okay. And I'm sorry, the second on that was?
Mr. Miller.
Mr. Miller, thank you. Mr. Miller, okay. Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Mr. Cohen?
Abstain, not present.
Ms. Espinoza? Yes. Mr. Frayne?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Perkins?
Abstain?
Mayor Bowser?
Yes.
Ms. Terrell? Ms. Khan?
Yes.
Chairman Lee?
Yes. We have two resolutions to adopt. The first resolution is the resolution of denial of Watchung Developers LLC 2024-04. Can I get the motion to adopt the resolution of denial?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Cohan. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Frame. Again, this is a vote to affirm the resolution of denial for Watchung Developers. Roll call, please.
Mr. Alexander?
Here.
Is,
Oh, no.
you voted no?
Sorry.
Okay, got you. Mr. Cohan?
Yes.
Ms. Espinoza?
Yes.
Mr. Frame?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Perkins?
Abstain, not present?
Mayor Bowser?
Yes.
Committeewoman Terrell?
Yes.
Ms. Khan?
Yes.
Chairman Lee?
Yes. The next resolution up is 1939 Vauxhall LLC, 2024-10. Can I get a motion to adopt the resolution?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Frame. Is there a second?
Second?
Seconded by Mrs. Perkins. Roll call, please.
Mr. Alexander?
Here.
Yes?
I'm sorry, yes.
That's okay. Mr. Cohan?
Abstain.
Ms. Espinoza?
Yes.
Mr. Frame?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Perkins?
Yes.
Mayor Bowser?
Yes.
Committeewoman Terrell?
Yes.
Ms. Khan?
Yes.
Chairman Lee?
Yes. All right, on to new business on the agenda. We have our first item here for application 2024-09, 811 Chestnut Street. Can the representative,
That's
Yes.
please?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and board members. Stephen Hale, representing the applicant, Michael Perguica, who is here this evening with us. We're here this evening for a subdivision of the property. I'm sure you're all familiar with it. It's essentially across from Fairway Drive on Chestnut Street. What we're proposing is to construct 3 two-family homes. It isn't a zone that permits two-family homes. I know there was talk about possibly townhouse developments and a lot, but after meetings with the respective departments of the township, we decided let's do two-family homes again, which conform with the zone. Unfortunately, and I did speak to council and to Mr. Davi, our engineer had a conflict and was not available tonight, but I thought what we would do is call upon our traffic engineer, Craig Paragoy, who is here with us, to address questions that were raised by the county, by your police department, by fire, and from the Collier's review. And Craig can take us through the installation of a new traffic signal, revisions that our engineer will make to that plan, talk about access for fire, and address the comments of the county and again, police. So there will in fact be an aligned traffic signal, not a stop. It's not a stop bar or stop sign coming out. So we will address all of those questions. So I thought it would be good to have Mr. Paragoy take us through the traffic and site access and address those questions so we can give the board an overview of what we plan there.
Is that the only witness that you'll be calling tonight?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then after that, questions from the board, questions from the public, and then basically we would postpone this to the next meeting.
Correct,
without
yeah, and then I
notice.
have Mr. Khan, our site engineer, our architect. We'd probably drag Craig back here and have him address any further questions on traffic and site access and the like. But yeah, next hearing would be our site engineer, our architect, and our professional planner.
Okay.
All right?
All right.
Thank you.
Would you like to call your
I'd like to
witness?
call upon Mr. Craig Paragoy. And, well, let me qualify. He'll be sworn and we'll call.
I was going to say, maybe I'll do such a great job that you'll just want to vote tonight and we won't have to worry about it.
Excuse me. Can you state your name and spell your last name for the record, please?
Sure, Craig Paragoy, P-E-R-E-G-O-Y.
Hey, Mr.
Raise your right
Paragoy,
hand.
I know you've testified, you and Mr. Steiger, before this board on many occasions. Let's briefly confirm your credentials.
Yeah, I have a bachelor's degree in civil engineering.
Can I
from-
swear him in first?
Oh, yes, that'd be a good idea.
Do you swear the testimony you're about to give is
Oh,
the
I'm
truth, the
sorry.
whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
No, I can't lie. then.
Thank you, counsel.
I have a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from Virginia Tech, licensed professional engineer in New Jersey, been a traffic engineer for 25 years now, and I testify pretty much every night, including here in Union a number of times as an expert in traffic engineering.
Board stipulates.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And again, the key documents that we're going to be reviewing this evening, there is from the Police Director, Christopher Donnelly, dated November 21 of 2024, the memo from the Fire Department. It's not dated, but it's 5 items that are raised there. The Collier's review from December 9th, and then the county's letter from March 3rd. So, Mr. Paraguay, if you could maybe just take us through briefly the site plan that's up there, and then if we could address those issues that are raised in the professional reviews.
Sure. This is the submitted plan set, I assume, so it doesn't need to be...
Yeah, these are just digital versions of the plans. There's no exhibits as part of this presentation this evening.
Yeah, so this is the plan set prepared by AZW Engineering, Adnan Khan, the engineer. He'll be here to give you all the exciting details about lighting and landscaping and utilities, but I'll give you the overview of what we're looking at. I guess you can see it better there. Here's the site, Chestnut Street's running sort of to the left side of the page at an angle, and then the signal at Fairway Drive, you can see that do not block the box striping that's there. We're located opposite that, opposite Fairway Drive. Vacant now. I think there was a single-family home there at one time, but it's been demolished. So that's the existing condition. What we're proposing, let's see if I can zoom in on this so everybody can see. What we're proposing is 3 two-family homes. You can see the 2 here that are sort of perpendicular to Chestnut, and then we have one all the way in the back closer to Route 22, which is up here on the top of the page. Each of these two-family homes will have a combination 2-car garage and driveway, so essentially 4 parking spaces for each of them. And we also have 6 common or visitor parking spaces, one of those being an ADA space. 3 of those are electric vehicle spaces. And then there's a cul-de-sac bulb essentially for turnaround, for emergency vehicles or for anybody who wanders in the wrong way and needs to turn around. They don't have to do a K-turn or back out of there. And what's interesting is that the residential site improvement standards, the RSIS, which governs the majority of this design, doesn't require this turnaround because the length of the roadway is less than 300 feet, but we're providing it anyway. So I think that's a little bit above and beyond and a benefit to the project. Similarly, we're going above and beyond for the number of parking spaces that RSIS requires. I'll go into that a little bit more later. Typically, you wouldn't see a traffic engineer in front of you for 3 two-family homes. It obviously is not a big traffic generator. It's not something that's going to create any sort of impact, but the location of this being opposite the traffic signal makes it a little bit more of a challenge, and really the only place to properly get access to the site is opposite Fairway Drive. I'll scroll down a little bit so you can see sort of the intersection that we're talking about and zoom in on it. So we basically become the 4th leg of that intersection, and I think there may have been a little bit of confusion because it's not really spelled out on these plans. There would be a whole separate set of design plans for the traffic signal modifications, and also the word stop written there, which you typically see at a stop sign. That shouldn't be there. That'll be taken off the plans. This is going to be a signalized approach to this intersection. So how do we do that without greatly impacting obviously the major roads of Chestnut Street and Fairway Drive? The way this signal's phased right now, it's 3 phases. So the first phase essentially is a northbound Chestnut, gets the green, and then there's a green left turn arrow onto Fairway Drive. The second phase is both directions are green, so southbound and northbound go, and then the third phase is Fairway Drive's green signal. What we're going to do is introduce essentially 2 more phases to it, and I'll explain that in a little bit, but one would be for this driveway exiting. It could, and this is something that we'll take a look at when we get into the design, it could run with its green time at the same time as Fairway Drive, but that might not be the most ideal just because it's a smaller driveway. It just would seem a little bit confusing, so I'm hopeful that I can get it to work without that. And then the police letter asks for a left turn phase for coming into the site. which can run at the same time as the left from Chestnut one to Fairway. But this is such a low traffic generating use, 3 two-family homes, you're rarely going to have somebody coming in or out. It's going to be very infrequent. So this will be a fully actuated traffic signal, meaning that you see the cameras up on the mast arms, they detect if a vehicle is there or not. So if there's no vehicle looking to turn left in and no vehicle looking to turn left or go through out, it won't ever turn green. So nothing will change. The signal will operate exactly the way it does today. When it does detect a vehicle exiting the site or wanting to make that left in, they'll get a very brief green time. You're talking, it's one, maybe at the most 2 cars it would have to process. So 5-6 seconds of green time, that's it. Then it's done, and then it's back to the regular operation of the signal. So it's really going to have a fairly minimal impact. And there's a lot that goes into that to ensure that the timing works, but that's essentially the idea. It will also be what's called non-locking. In other words, if I pull up to this stop bar and I want to make a right, and I make that right turn on red, the signal will know that I'm gone and not give that green phase. So it's very, very minimally, I'll say, slipped into the operation of this intersection to minimize the impacts to both Fairway and Chestnut. And it's really the best way to handle it and the best way to get safe and efficient access to the site. We looked at a number of other options, trying to make it a right in, right out. You're still going to have people who try to make the left in and try to make the left out, no matter what you do. So this is the safest and best way to incorporate it. And like I said, this is a fully designed traffic signal plan set that will be done. Obviously, we want this board's approval before the client goes through the expense of putting those design plans together, but that's essentially how it's going to work to, again, accommodate pretty minimal traffic volumes, but given the location, it's the best we can do. In terms of the site itself, just briefly, I'll touch on, as I mentioned, Adnan will go through grading and those types of things, but in terms of the parking, the residential site improvement standards require 2 spaces per unit. So we have 6 units in total, 3 two-families, so 12 parking spaces would be required. Now, the RSIS considers a 2-car garage and driveway combination as 3.5 spaces. The idea being some people will use their garage for storage and not park the car in there, so that's what's built in. And then we have the 6 extra spaces, the 6 perpendicular parking spaces. So if you do the math on that, we have 16.5 parking spaces per the RSIS. We're required to have 12. Reason we want to put a little bit extra parking is, A, there's the room for it. It physically fits. And there really is no other option here. There's no street parking in the area. We certainly don't want anybody trying to park on the street. So it made sense, given the space that we had, to put those extra parking spaces. So we do exceed the parking requirement. We provide the requisite number of EV spaces based on the EV law. That actually gives us a bonus, an additional parking space. But from a practical perspective, we provide more than enough parking based on the RSIS, and we can ensure that visitors will have a parking spot or any overflow for that guy who does use the garage for storage and not for parking. In terms of the roadway itself, it's classified, again, this is RSIS governs, it's a multifamily access cul-de-sac is the technical classification of the roadway. And we do provide that turnaround. Again, I mentioned that under 300 feet, we don't need it, but we are providing that turnaround. There is a turning template in here for a fire truck making that turnaround. Your fire department asked to use their specific truck. We've used it. It's actually the one that he used is a little tougher to maneuver, so we can modify that, and I'm confident that that will work. The width of the roadway conforms to the RSIS because we have perpendicular parking. It's 24 feet, and that's exactly what we provide here. No more, no less there. So in terms of the roadway design, parking, everything is compliant with the RSIS, which governs. That's really, it from the traffic side of things, and I suppose the site plan side of things in a nutshell. Again, more details on stormwater and all that to follow. As far as the comment letters that we received.
Yeah, maybe we could go through each one. Yeah.
The first one, I'll start with the police because that's the most important to the traffic guys. He's essentially outlining what I described, how the signal the traffic signal should operate. He's looking for the ability for signalized movements in and out, and that was really the crux of the entire letter. Remove that stop bar, incorporate this into the traffic signal, provide the ability to make the left in and the left out, because people are going to do it anyway, so they should do it under a controlled manner. We completely agree, and that is the intent.
And we will reach out to Mr. Donnelly and confirm that, and if revisions to the plans are needed for his comfort level, but that we have no problem complying with his request.
The second letter I'll touch on is the fire department letter. As I mentioned, to make sure the turning radius accommodates the Union Township fire truck, the plans show the generic, or the ASHTO, it's a generic fire truck, which is actually not as maneuverable as your fire truck, so we'll make that revision, no problem. They request fire lanes to be marked and labeled along the curbs and in the turnaround area. That's not a problem at all. The third point requests bollards in front of the EV charging stations, so people don't run those over, and that makes perfect sense and will be done. And then the fourth and fifth are not really my expertise. Sprinkler system, I'm sure the architect will touch on that, and then fire hydrant loop, which Adnan, the engineer, will touch on when he testifies. Next letter would be from your engineer, from Collier's. I think a lot of what was in here, at least from my perspective, was echoed from the police and the fire letter. Any of the other items that are more engineering specific, I'm told that we can comply, but I'll let Adnan come up here and speak to that specifically. There was a note in here to show an area for snow removal. We do have plenty of room for snow removal, but completely understand you want it memorialized on the plan so it's done in the right way when snow is taken off the property, but we do have a lot of open space and availability to pile snow and keep it out of the roadway. I don't know if there's anything else
I
from
think,
my
just
perspective.
touch on, I think you did already, but 6.2, I think that's what was captured in what you testified already.
Yeah, that's the signal, how the signal will operate, which I hope I explained and it made sense to everybody. Exactly how we'll incorporate this driveway into the traffic signal. And it is quite a bit of work and quite an expense that the applicant's undertaking to bring this into the traffic signal, but it's going to make the site function the way it should, and is the safer alternative. The last letter was the Union County letter, and there was really nothing in here. They want us to show the site distance, which is less important that it's signalized, but we will certainly show that. There's good visibility there. And they wanted some changes to the way the driveway is situated, which may change when they see that we're bringing it into the signal, but they'll certainly be a party to the review of that traffic signal, so even though I believe it's the township's jurisdiction who owns that signal. That was only 4 letters, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
I think everyone has copies of all those letters.
Mr. Chairman, if I have a few questions. Okay. So I'm a little unclear where we are with your, the design of the traffic signal. So I know that it didn't show on the plan, but it hasn't shown anywhere yet, and I'm like, what's the status with the county?
There hasn't been any hard design other than just taking a look at how we're going to do it. Sort of what I explained, how I anticipated being phased. That's the next step to get into, is, where the traffic signal heads are, how they line up. There's a lot that goes into it, and there's a big expense on the applicant's part. So, to design an intersection for a project that isn't going to happen doesn't make any sense. So that's why we haven't really dove into that yet. But conceptually, we could put something together if that makes it easier.
So my concern with that is that if let's say they don't like the alignment of the county, it changes the entire project, right? So the lot sizes will change, and then variances could change. Is there a way that, Steve, before you come back, there could be some indication from the county, at least conceptually, that they're okay with the alignment, and that from a timing perspective, I'm sure that you can work out all the timing issues, but I'm more concerned about alignment because that really changes the application.
Yeah.
And the board's kind of wasting their time if they don't say, if he says, well, it's got to move 2 feet to the left or 2 feet to the right, that changes the whole application, lot sizes and variances and everything. So, do you
We
think
can-
that
we can
that's
put
going
that
to be a
concept-
heavy lift to
No.
get that from them?
Yeah, because I don't think it's going to change the location of the driveway. We can put that together and
Okay.
submit
All right,
submit
that
it
would be my
ASAP.
main concern.
And my experience with Union County, since they've kind of taken a step back from all the signals, is they're going to say, as long as he says it's all right, but we'll get their feedback.
So the other question would be, assuming that everything's okay, how long do you think the approval process will take to get that signal? This could be the longest lead time for this project.
From the Union County will give a very cursory review of the signal. They're going to defer to the township, probably to your office to review it, so.
Right.
You tell me.
But from
It won't be like a DOT situation where it's a year and a half, 2 years to get a signal done. It's not going to be that cumbersome, I don't think. And we're not really modifying the intersection too much per se, it's more just the signal equipment. So it's not a wholesale redo of it.
But from my understanding in that correspondence on March 3rd is that the county has withheld your application, correct? Has withheld, basically.
Well,
They have not progressed
they-
with approval from the county plan.
Correct, and
Okay.
it's typical of the county. It's more technical things that they're looking for, such as making sure curbs, driveways conform to county standards, and a drainage report, which we will certainly supply to them.
Yeah, and they actually don't even mention the signal in their.
Yeah, they don't,
review.
again, they're going to, from my discussions with the county, they're going to defer to the township on that.
Yeah, at some point, Union County had enough of dealing with traffic signals and pushed it all to the municipalities and to DOT.
All right, so Steve, let's coordinate on getting the conceptual plans together, and then we can kind of have dialogue with the county, make sure
Great.
they're
And-
comfortable.
We can bring in Chris from police also, and bring in, or probably Orlando from fire.
Okay.
Coordinate with all.
Yeah, just taking a look, I mean, the center lines are lined up, so I wouldn't expect, I'm drawing on Adnan's plan, I wouldn't expect a huge shift, but you're right, a 2-foot shift changes the lot size, and you should know that. Understood.
I have no further questions now. Mr. Paraguay?
Questions from the board?
Yes, I have
Mr.
one
Chair.
question.
Mrs. Burkett.
Thank you. With respect, this is a private road, is that my understanding?
Yes, private.
And therefore, there's no indication whether or not there could be guest parking there as well, or overflow parking. Is it the intention to prohibit that in some way, or will that be allowed?
The intention is for, well, a visitor could theoretically park any place
Right.
on the site. I mean, when somebody comes to visit me at my house, they park in my driveway. So the same situation could be here. But those extra spaces, the 6 perpendicular, like typical parking spaces, the idea is for that to be for visitors, or if for some reason somebody's got an extra car, but,
Well, I think,
that's the point.
with respect, I think the reality that you mentioned about the fact that people need more than one parking space for an apartment that has for a 2-family home, put it that way, 2-bedroom and so forth.
So each of them have 2 on site, one in the garage and one in the driveway.
Right.
Yeah, but we shared the same concern, there's really no place else to park,
Right.
so that's why we gave the extra parking spaces to make sure that we didn't have any problems there.
Okay.
And, if somebody has the Super Bowl party, I'm sure, there could be some sort of overflow, but for the 99.9% of the time, this is going to be empty parking spaces.
If in fact, in your opinion, as a traffic person, if in fact those parking spaces, that road happens to have cars parked as guests, as visitors, whatever, would it be wide enough for our fire department and emergency vehicles to come in and
The-
make their turns and safely exit?
Yes, and the fire department wants us to stripe fire lanes to ensure that. So somebody's not going to leave their car where it says no parking in the fire lane, whereas they might if it didn't have that.
And will
That's why
there
we're
be any
asking for that.
prohibition for anyone who does not live in the development, I'll call it, to come into it, whereas the road is, quote, a private road?
No, there wouldn't be any really way to prohibit it. It's not, if you think of a multifamily building that has a garage, you can't really do that here. It's an open air with a traffic signal.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So you testified about the intended function of the new traffic signal.
Yes.
That will create a left turn lane on the southbound side of Chestnut Street, heading towards Roselle Park. Currently, there's 2 lanes there.
Right.
If that is a left, will that be this is the question, will that be a left turn only lane, or will it be left and straight?
The 2 through lanes will stay there. We will incorporate a small, and like I said, you only need 1, maybe 2 cars, so a small left turn pocket, which will shadow the left turn lane opposite. So you'll have 2 through lanes that go through and 2 through lanes that go through just like they do today. This left turn lane will just fit into this striped area and push a little bit into that taper.
Okay, and
And we'll be, considering where this is, we'll be able to pull that up too, so we really won't.
and that's something you're discussing with the traffic division at the police department, and they're going to approve that?
Yeah, they asked for that left turn lane.
All right, I'm just concerned, and I would like you to testify as to whether or not that new configuration will in any way cause a backup of traffic when the light is red, back up Chestnut Street, because there's another signal at the end of West Chestnut Street, and currently, there can be a backup there.
I just drove by and it was done, yes.
Right.
No,
So-
the intent is to pull that, anybody who's making that turn is going to be pulled out of that live lane of traffic into that left turn lane. So they won't impede it at all. And like I said, this driveway approach and that left turn lane are only ever going to turn green if somebody's there waiting. So it's not like it's every time the light goes through, you're going to get a green for that driveway and nobody's there. It's going to be based on vehicle detection and only give them a green if they're there.
All right, and then a
Very
follow-up.
short green.
Follow-up to Ms. Perkins' line of questioning. Could you go back to zoom in on the detail of the cul-de-sac and the...
Sure.
So that area that you indicated would be marked as a fire lane and no parking. Would that include that cul-de-sac area?
I believe the fire department asked for it in there, yes.
So that no visitors or, transient folks that come for, as you've characterized it, a Super Bowl party, would be able to park over there?
Not
Unless they're
legally,
parking
no.
there illegally.
They'd be parking there illegally.
And
We'll
this-
work with the fire department on specifically where they want the...
Right, and the area from the end of the first lot on the right side of the entrance toward the back house, there would be no parking along that curb on the right side of the street?
Correct. No parking on the curb line. It's a 24-foot aisle, just like a typical parking lot. You have 24 feet and then perpendicular spaces.
And then one other question. Since this is a private road, and I understand that we're going to receive testimony regarding the homeowners association and some of the other aspects of the application, trash collection would be dealt with similarly to access for emergency vehicles? I mean, in terms of
Yes.
a garbage truck being able to get in and out?
Yes, a garbage truck is going to have no problem just making this turn in the cul-de-sac. The fire truck's got to kind of K-turn it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
Yes.
Mr. Frame?
Sir, the left turn lane from Fairway Drive going northbound to go under Route 22 onto West Chestnut, you're going to take some of that left turn lane away? Is that what you're saying? Am I correct in understanding?
No, the fairway approach will stay the same, but instead of a left and a right turn lane, it'll be a through left and a right turn lane. So it'll just be paint. That would be the only thing that would change there. So right now, when you pull up, if you're looking on the plan.
No, we're in two different directions.
Okay.
We're on Chestnut Street at the light.
Going
Development is on the
north or
right
s-
side, going
Gotcha,
north,
gotcha,
okay?
okay.
Between the Fairway Drive and Route 22 bridge, the underpass, you have a left turn lane to go onto West Chestnut. Are you taking any of that away going northbound, going towards the cannon?
No, the left turn lane that you see going off the page, there's a taper into that left turn lane, so it'll be a little bit smaller. But no, our left turn lane into the site is going to shadow exactly opposite the left turn lane in the opposite direction. So the left turn lanes face one another to make the turn.
So you are taking away a left turn lane somewhat between Fairway Drive and going on to West Chestnut, correct?
You're taking away from the taper, not the full width of it, but yeah, some of that room. There's like probably 8 feet wide median, and we need 10 feet for that left turn lane, so there'll be 2 feet less right at the edge of it.
For how long?
We really only need one vehicle, so maybe 40, 50 feet at most. But it's not, the 2 through lanes will still have 2 receiving lanes to meet them. You'll
Yes.
You're cut into that next left turn lane will just be a little bit sharper, kind of more like what vehicles actually do anyway.
And how will that create a problem coming out of Fairway Drive to make the left turn onto Chestnut? If you want to make the left lane and you want to make a left turn, will that be a problem? Making a left turn to West Chestnut?
No, coming out of
Coming out of Fairway Drive, making a left, will that be a problem making a left onto West Chestnut?
No, and one of the things that we'll do, and that we have to do for all of these, is we'll show a tractor trailer making that left turn and make sure that if the stop bar has to get pulled back, it will. But this case, you have 2 lanes in each direction, it's pretty wide, it shouldn't be an issue.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
I have a question for the attorney. Steve, do you have a draft of the HOA agreement?
I'm sorry.
Have you guys prepared a draft of the HOA agreement?
Yeah, I can
Can
send
you
that.
provide that? Thank you.
Any further questions from the board? Questions from the public? Okay, hearing none.
This was very helpful, by the way, the questions from the board and your board professionals.
So I think our next step is that, with no other witnesses to call, what we'll do is call for a motion to adjourn the matter until the next meeting without notice. Is that correct?
That'd be great.
Yeah.
And I don't think we might be near the time, but we'll stipulate any appropriate extension of time.
Okay, wonderful.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Did you want to talk to Mr. Hale about the association at all and how he envisioned that was going to,
Yeah, well, Greg
tonight?
asked for a copy. I'll
just
draft
wanna-
the HOA document
You
and
just
get
want to
it
get the
to...
document, and then we can...
Yeah.
I think let's have the HOA document be provided so that the board and as well as council has enough time to read it and as well brief the board accordingly. So
No problem with
might
that.
as well defer those questions until the next meeting.
No problem.
Okay?
Mr. Chair, so, just so that we're clear, I understand that your agreement is that we need to see all new design plans. Certainly our engineer does, correct?
For the traffic signal.
Traffic signal.
Yes.
And if there's any other questions relative to comments and you need to add additional design plans, I think it would be helpful if the board had as much information as possible.
Correct.
So that we can go through this very thoroughly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem.
Can I get a motion to postpone the application to the next meeting without notice?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Cohan. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Frayne. Roll call, please.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Mr. Cohan?
Yes.
Ms. Espinoza?
Yes.
Mr. Frame?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Perkins?
Yes?
Mayor Bowser?
Yes.
Committeewoman Terrell? Ms. Khan?
Yes.
Chairman Lee?
Yes.
Thank you all again, and really appreciate the feedback, again, from the board and the board professionals. Look forward to seeing you next month.
All right. Thank you very much.
Take care now. Have a great night.
Take care. All right. Next in new business is application 2025-04 CRF Development, 1307 Stuyvesant Avenue. Can the representative please?
Oh, yeah, Rosemary.
Go ahead, Mr. Hale.
Yeah, the last application, I had spoken to council and to Vince about that. That actually, we thought it was going to be on, we noticed for it, and we requested that that be carried to next month. So we'll send a confirming letter again, no problem with stipulation of time. Thanks, Rosemary.
Okay. I think we'll need to act as a board to adjourn and postpone the, is the application 2025-06-1331 Stuyvesant, right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Can I get such a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Cohan, is there a second? Seconded by Mrs. Khan. Roll call, please.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Mr. Cohan?
Yes.
Ms. Espinoza?
Yes.
Mr. Frame?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Perkins?
Yes.
Mayor Bowser?
Yes.
Committeewoman Terrell? Ms. Khan? Chairman Lee?
Yes.
Thank you, Ryan. Thanks, Rosemary. Have a great
All
night.
right. Can, you are the representative for the applicant for CRF Development?
I'm the attorney, yes. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, board professionals, Mr. Mayor, and Mrs. Councilwoman. Attorney Rosemary Stone Dougherty with the law firm of A.Y. Strauss. I'm here tonight on the application for the preliminary and final site plan for CRF Development LLC for the property located at 1307 Stuyvesant Avenue. It's located in the DT, which is your downtown transition known as Block 2210, Lot 41. The application, just a really quick summary, is for retail on the first floor of approximately a little under 1,100 square feet, with residential units located on the second and third floor. There will be 3 variances associated with the application, as one pre-existing non-conforming condition that I did conservatively also notice as a variance, even though normally pre-existing non-conforming conditions are not typically variances, as well as 3 design waivers. I'd like to give Mr. Chairman and members of the board just a little bit of a roadmap. I plan on first calling our professional engineer, which is Mr. Giovanni Manello from Mantero Design LLC. Then I plan on calling Mr. Paulo Dantes, who is from Dantes Corrette, which is our architect. And then lastly, we have Alexander Dougherty, who is our professional planner from Dougherty Development and Planning LLC. With that being said, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, if we can have Mr. Giovanni Manello come up and have him sworn in.
Mr. Manello, can you spell your last name for the record?
Sure, M-A-N-I-L-I-O.
And
You raise
Ms.
your right hand. You swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
So, Mr. Manello, I know you've appeared in front of this board before. However, can you just give us the short version of your professional credentials and confirm that all of your licenses are current as of this evening?
Of course. So I have a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering from Syracuse University. I've been licensed in the state for the past 16 years and licensed in good standing, testified in front of numerous boards and in front of this board in the past.
Board stipulates.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. So, Mr. Manello, can you kind of walk us through what exists at the site today, and then segue into what the proposal is?
Sure, just give me 1 second to bring up my exhibits. And I don't know, do you want me to introduce the exhibits prior to going through or during the testimony?
These are the same as the plans that were submitted?
These are, but then we do have 2 new exhibits, an aerial exhibit.
So, Council, would you like us to mark those 2 new exhibits now, or wait till he comes to them?
Why don't we wait till we come to?
Okay, not a problem.
Thank you.
No, we'll start with the first one that's up here. It's
Okay, so we have our first exhibit. So this would be A1. It's-
yes, and it's entitled Aerial Exhibit with today's date, 1307 Stuyvesant Avenue. It's an aerial of the general vicinity with the property highlighted in yellow and the zoning shown as well. So the property is in the middle, highlighted in yellow. It's, as stated earlier, in the DT zone, 1307 Stuyvesant Ave. It's approximately 102 feet wide by 120 feet deep. It has a little bit of a shape because Stuyvesant does have an angle, so it's a little trapezoidal. Lot is approximately 12,652 square feet, and currently consists of a 2-story, it's a little hard to see here, 2.5-story office building that used to be Weichert Realty. Additionally, there was parking, or still is a parking lot in the rear for 15 parking spaces with 2 driveway curb cuts. One of them is off of Stuyvesant Avenue where my cursor is, and that's a 1-way driveway that comes onto the site. And then there's a 2-way driveway that is off of Marianne Way, which is on the east side of the property. Currently, as situated, the building is situated on the high point of the site, which is roughly at an elevation of 128.5 for the ground elevation. And then the property slopes towards the north or towards Marianne Way with an elevation of approximately 121.5. As far as pre-existing nonconformities, two of them that we did notice were the lot widths that was mentioned earlier, and also there's design waivers for the location of the parking. So the parking right now is located too close to both the side and rear property lines. I will now go to my next exhibit, which is entitled 1307 Stuyvesant Avenue, entitled Site Rendering with today's date, I believe.
So this would be A2.
Okay. And this shows what is being proposed as part of the site. It's a colored rendition of the site plan with the landscaping shown and the zoning information. So what's being proposed in the middle of the site here in brown is the proposed building. The dark brown represents the building that is on the first floor, and the light brown represents an overhang or floors on the upper level. So what's being proposed is a 3-story mixed-use building with a retail component located in the southwest corner of approximately 1,100 square feet. We call it retail space, but speaking to the applicant, they don't anticipate that it's going to be something that's of a heavy use. It's a small retail space or a small space for commercial, and they're probably going to be marketing towards professional offices or some type of service facility as far as serving the community. And then additionally, on the first floor is amenity space, a lobby, a mailroom, elevator, stair tower, a trash room, and utilities. On the upper floors, which are above the dark brown and the light brown area, there's two more stories, and that will consist of residential. The residential will consist of 10 studio or 1-bedrooms and 4 2-bedroom units as well. And the architect will go into a little more detail of what those units look like and what the building looks like as well. The driveway along Stuyvesant Avenue will be closed, and the driveway on Marianne Way would be modified slightly. So relocated slightly and widened by 2 feet to be in conformance with the regulations of 24 feet. We are proposing a parking lot in the rear of the site or on the east side of the site. There will be 22 physical parking spaces. I know the plans that were submitted as part of the application, we did have 23 parking spaces, but per the recommendation of your board engineer, one of the recommendations was to widen some of the parking spaces along the building or underneath the building. So this exhibit right now that we're showing does reflect that change. So we revised all these spaces to be 9 by 18. For the regular parking spaces, and the ADA spaces are in compliance with ADA as far as being 8 by 18. So we did lose 1 parking space from the original application. Underneath the building, or underneath the canopy, there are 11 spaces. And of that, 3 of them will be tandem. So what that means is that there's 1 space in front of each other. So that there's these 6 spaces right here, again, where you have 3 spaces in front of the other 3 spaces. And the way we anticipate that to work is that those would be designated to the 2-bedroom units, and they would be designated spaces for those units as well. And no different than, your own single-family house where you have a driveway and a garage, or a townhouse type of situation. On the east side, we have another 11 parking spaces. 3 of those will be EV, and then we do have 1 EV underneath the building as well, which is ADA compliant, which is required by the state. And we do have 1 regular ADA space as well, which complies with the ADA regulations. With the EV credit, so the way that the state works, if you do provide EV spaces, they do provide a slight credit for those spaces. So even though we have 22 physical spaces, with the credit, it does count for 24 parking spaces. Based on the configuration of the number of bedrooms, the number of units, and the retail space, this application requires 28 spaces. So we are deficient by 4. I do want to note that by removing the driveway off of Stuyvesant, we actually do gain 1 on-site parking. Again, it can't be designated for this development, but as a whole for the community, there is additional 1 parking space that is gained on Stuyvesant. Entrances to the building. So the main entrance to the building for the residential is located here on Stuyvesant and in the rear of the building. Essentially, we would anticipate all the residents would come out come through from the back of the building, but if they do want to go into downtown or venture into the town, they would come out the front and walk the town that way. As far as retail or the office space, again, there will be an entrance in the front and an entrance in the rear as well. The trash room, as I had mentioned earlier, is located back in the back of the building over here. So how that would work is the residents and the retail will bring the trash into that room, and property maintenance will bring it out during trash collection, and that would be picked up by a private hauler. Additional improvements that we are proposing a dry well stormwater system in the back parking lot, and what that's going to do is pick up any increase in impervious from what's out there today. So we are asking for a slight deviation in the impervious coverage for the zone, but again, we are detaining all the water that's being increased as far as the improvements. Additionally, I do want to note that the parking lot right now that's in the back of the Weicker building, all sheet flow, so all goes down and out the driveway on Marion Way, and that parking lot was about 6,500 square feet. This parking lot, even though it might be slightly bigger, a lot of it is underneath the building, so it's being collected by roof leaders, so the roof on the top is collecting the water and putting it into the dry well system. So that the net result is a reduction in the overland flow towards Marion Way by about 2,500 square feet of pavement or impervious area. So I think that's a benefit as well. So I just want to mention that. All the utilities are anticipated to come off of Stuyvesant, with the exception of the gas, which would come off of Marion Way. We are proposing landscaping, and this plan actually has additional landscaping from what was submitted. So on the north side of the building, originally there was a door that was anticipated with an entryway off the side off of Marion Way. After speaking with the applicant, and they decided that it probably didn't make sense to have a door there, since they have a door in the front and the back, and as far as security purposes, it made sense to have less doors into the residential space. So we took out that landing and added additional landscaping as well. And then there's landscaping as well on the southwest corner of the building. As far as lighting, all the lighting that we're proposing is either building mounted or canopy, like underneath the second floor, what these black dots represent. And I believe we do comply with the lighting requirements for the town. I did misspeak, so we do have actually two retaining walls, or one retaining wall that goes around the side and rear, so the east side and south side of the property. So it's a retaining wall that varies from 2 feet to 4 feet. And originally we showed a fence on top of the wall. On our renderings, we put it below the wall to eliminate a variance, but we did speak to some residents prior to the meeting, and their preference is if we did keep the fence on the top of the wall to provide an additional buffer for them and their families. And again, we have no issues with that, but we will be requesting a variance for the fence on top of the wall. So it's a 6-foot privacy fence, and like I said, that wall varies from 2 feet to 4 feet. And the reason we're doing that is, if you recall, the Weicker building is on the high point of the site, which is right on this area right here where my cursor is. And we're bringing the building all the way closer to Stuyvesant. In order to do so, we have to drop the grade. So we're actually going to excavate and get rid of that mound that's over there. So we're actually dropping the parking lot by 2 to 4 feet as well, to provide another benefit to the neighbors as far as headlight glare and any nuisances that might be provided by these parking spaces.
Now, Mr. Manello, that's an important point, because the site is being dropped rather significantly.
Correct.
It's going to lower the elevation look of the building that's along Stuyvesant, right? It's going to lower the effect of what exists today with the Weicker building being on the highest point and overlooking into the residential yards, as well as lowering the parking in the rear, correct?
Correct, and I believe we did a math. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but the actual proposed building right now, the height of that building, the top of the roof is actually lower than the Weicker's top of roof, even though this is 3 stories and that's 2.5, given the way that the building was situated on the site and how this one is situated as well.
And then I just want to go back to a moment, because we have spoken to the 2 neighbors that are immediately affected to the site, the residential neighbor to the rear and the commercial neighbor that is to the right of us on Stuyvesant, right?
Correct.
So The neighbor to the rear would prefer to have the fence on top of the wall, which would add a fourth variance to our application, correct?
Yep.
And then there was also talk about making sure that the turn out onto Marianne would be a left turn sign only, correct?
Yeah, so there was concerns about people driving down Marianne, not knowing it's a dead end, and there's a cul-de-sac when they come out of the parking lot. So we have no issues of putting signage at the exit, either saying no right turns or left turn only, to kind of promote the left turn back onto Stuyvesant.
Thank you.
You're welcome. As far as loading it and unloading, I mean, you do have apartments and you do have a commercial space. We don't anticipate that a commercial space of this size will need full-size trucks or big deliveries. Our anticipation is that the biggest truck you'll ever see is a FedEx or UPS truck. And the way it would operate, it would most likely be they're driving on Stuyvesant, that they would pull to the curb and unload there and drop off a package or pick up a package, and then get back in, which would be momentarily. The other kind of deliveries that we anticipate also is your DoorDash and Uber as well. And again, we, seeing it, in different situations, most likely they would drop off on a curb as well, since it's momentarily, and the front door is right here as well. Then I'll just briefly go over the relief that we're requesting. So we have the lot width variance of 106.9 feet. That's existing and proposed, where 125 feet is required. Again, that's a pre-existing, that's not being changed as part of this application. The impervious coverage, so 80% is permitted, where 86.9% was shown on the plans that were submitted. Given that we lost one parking space, we widened the spaces, but we lost one parking space, we actually reduced the impervious by a little bit, so that what we're asking for tonight is 86.4%. And again, we do have stormwater to propose to mitigate any negative impacts. Building coverage, there's a slight overage. 50% is permitted, where 53.1% is proposed. We mentioned the parking. 28 spaces are required per the code, and 24 spaces are proposed based on the EV credit. And then there's the one variance for the fence. I believe at the worst part, it will be 10 feet from the bottom of the wall to the top of the fence, where I believe 6 feet is permitted.
And then you kind of you didn't skip over, but you mentioned the building coverage being slightly over at 53.1, and a big chunk of that is driven from the fact that this site is showing that the garbage enclosure would be inside the building, correct? Rather than typically you would see it outside with some type of dumpster.
Correct, and then we think that's a better alternative, as the garbage is not out in the open and blowing around, or people have to walk to the dumpster. It's contained within the building. And then there are also 3 design waivers that we're requesting. So one of them is the 11 spaces to the east. So parking dimension of 9 by 18 is required by code, and those spaces are 8 by 18. Again, I think that's de minimis when it comes to the size of the stalls. It's not being utilized heavily like a retail use, where you have a shopping center and people are coming in and out. These are residents that most likely, during the work week are coming in and out 2 or 3 times a day, and then they'll see a little more activity during the weekends. The tandem parking spaces, where no parking spaces can be blocked by another parking space or cannot maneuver out, is a variance or a design waiver as well. So there's 3 of those shown right here. And lastly, the parking setback from the residential zone, 10 feet is permitted, where 4.5 feet is being proposed as part of this application. Currently, the setback for the parking as it is today is actually right on the property line, so we are making that a little bit better by about 4.5 feet. And the additional buffers with the drop in the grade and adding the privacy fence. And that concludes my testimony.
Not quite yet.
No,
We're
not
not
yet.
done. Okay. There's a couple review letters I want to make sure we go through, just for clarity for the board. Okay. So why don't we start with the board's engineer review letter of April 15th. You've had an opportunity to review it, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So going through here, just kind of going in order, is there anything that you cannot stipulate to, or
No, I think just the only one that I'll talk to Mr. Denave offline is the EV parking spaces. I think there was a clarification that came from DCA on how that's measured, but if it's required to do a fifth space, we'll do a fifth space, but I think I'm pretty comfortable with 4. Other than that, I don't see any issues in the letter.
Okay, so you're able to address all the stormwater and drainage concerns that are noted. I know you testified as to the lighting and landscaping. We discussed the walls and the fences. How about the signage? We didn't really touch base on that. I know the architect's going to go into that a little further.
Yep, so the signage on the building will be in compliance with the town code.
Okay, and then the utilities you mentioned are all going to come in off Stuyvesant, correct?
Correct.
And there was a question to want to make sure that there would be no ground-mounted transformer on the site. Your initial investigations are that one would not be required,
Yeah,
correct?
we don't anticipate a ground transformer, looking at the site and given the size of the development, and also looking at the poles. There's actually a pole right in front of our site that have 3 transformers on it already, and one on the other side of Marianne Way over here on this intersection that has 2 transformers. So I think we'll be okay. And obviously, if we do need a ground transformer, I'm sure we'll come back to this board and ask for that location.
Okay. And then just to go back for a minute regarding their refuse room, right, again, just so the board better understands, can you explain again some of the rationale for wanting that inside the building rather than a enclosed dumpster area?
Yeah, so maybe the architect could talk to as well, but what we're seeing in developments like this and residential developments is, I don't want to say people are lazy, but people are lazy and they want to kind of just go the least amount of steps as possible to get rid of their trash. So keeping it in the building serves 2 purposes. One, it's convenient for the residents, so trash is not piling up inside the apartments or somewhere else in the hallways. And it keeps the outside of the site clean as well, with any wrappers or anything that's blowing with the wind as well. We know there's covers, but obviously not all the time they get covered or closed again. And it's a convenience thing, again, especially that the property maintenance is going to be bringing it out during trash day. So all you have to do is bring it to the trash room, and then it's taken care of from there on.
And then you also had an opportunity to review the Union Fire Department memo. It does not have a date on it, but we received it over from the board secretary. Is there anything on the fire memo that you would not be able to address or need to discuss?
As far as site-related, no, there's no issues.
Okay. And then lastly, we did get a word back from Union County. There were just 2 minor comments to the design of the site, correct, in their March 18th, 2025 review letter. Can you just touch on those very briefly?
Yeah, so they're requesting new sidewalks and curbing along their frontage, which we have no issues with as well.
Okay, and that was it,
And
right?
that was it, correct.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Questions from the board?
I have some.
Mr. Frame?
Sir, this is a sprinkler building?
I believe so, but I'll leave it to the architect, but I'm almost positive it is, or it has to
Okay,
be.
so there would be a sprinkler in that garbage area, that garbage room?
That I don't know the
Okay.
answer, not the architect.
Okay, and for trash pickup, how is a garbage truck going to get in there?
Yeah, so I don't know if the applicant has picked out a hauler yet, but there's different size haulers, and we've seen this in the past. They have small haulers, which are like pickup trucks with like almost a dumpster in the back, or a regular garbage truck as well. And if that's the case, they would pull into the parking lot. Again, this would probably most likely be during off hours, and then back out into Marion Way and back out.
And how about for moving companies when they bring it?
Probably the same situation. Obviously, if there's no parking along Stuyvesant or Marion Way, what we were talking with the applicant is that they would try to schedule those with management,
Right.
and try to see if they could reserve spaces in the parking lot, and try to schedule it so it's an off hour when residents are not home, and then we could block off some of those spaces.
But is there would there be a door
An entrance to?
designated to?
Designated loading area, no, they would come out the main, either the main back door or main front door
Okay.
into it.
To
I
the
would
elevator.
assume the main back door, since that's where the elevator is.
Okay.
But, yeah,
All right.
yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Any other questions? Mr.
Yes.
Horn?
Follow-up to Mr. Frank's questions again. I'm still not clear on this concept of this trash room. how will the trash be stored or contained within that room between collections?
Yeah, usually you will have garbage cans, either those, rolling trash bins that you would have at your house. And we did talk about the size as well, so talking to the architect during the design phase, that room will get a little bit bigger as well. They think the lobby and amenity space is a little too big, so they'll steal some of the space out of there. But there'll be, 96-gallon trash bins that you have on wheels.
Has there been any discussion about rodent management, given that there'll be trash stored in a confined space?
Not that I'm aware of. We do a lot of these, and I would say it's very typical to have them inside the building. And again, maybe the architect has a little more insight on it, but yeah, I think it's very common these days.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to follow up with a question relative to, certainly we all perhaps thought of the possibility of rodents, which are happening in private homes where garbage is inside, carefully placed. Furthermore, it's in a public area where people will be coming in and out. Will there be any mitigation for odors?
Again, I may
I mean,
have
that's a significant
Yeah.
portion of quality of life,
Yep, so I
in
will.
my opinion.
As far as odors in the building, I don't believe so, and I'll defer to the architect. In the past, I've seen either some type of louvers, high up to allow.
Great, right out into the hallway.
Oh, no, this is not, so this is its own room on the outside. So it's attached to the building, but it's
Okay.
on the exterior wall.
Thank you.
So the only access and entrance, I believe, is from the exterior.
And further, point 1.6 in the proposed design waiver relative to the EV parking spaces, pardon me, the tandem parking spaces.
Mhm.
Would you explain in a practical manner, if you will, respectfully, how that will work? I understand that you say, as in a private home, that often exists where there's a garage and so forth. However, our ordinance prohibits that, and yet you've still proposed it.
I missed that last part, I'm
So,
sorry.
if I'm reading correctly, parking area shall be designed to permit each motor vehicle to proceed to and from the parking space provided to it without requiring the moving of any other vehicles.
Correct, we're asking for
The
relief.
proposed parking is
Yes.
provided 3 tandem spaces, therefore a design waiver is required. How can you convince this board and our community that design waiver should be offered?
Again, the way that we're going to monitor that is those 2 spaces, the one in front and back, is going to be assigned to the one unit. So it's not like, I have to go knock on somebody's door to have them move a car. It's, like I said, no different than, you asking your husband or your wife, I'm going to be leaving, or you plan it strategically where you park, in the morning or in the night to.
I understand
Yeah.
the arrangements that would have to be made. It's my personal opinion that it's impractical and almost prohibitive for choosing this as my place to park. And how will that be assigned then? Which apartment will have to use that?
The idea is that the 2-bedroom units would be the ones assigned to the tandems, since under the RSI standards, and plus the fact they're 2 bedrooms, they would typically have more than one vehicle, so they would be assigned to the 2-bedroom units. And again, this is a design waiver. It's not a variance that we're asking for, but it is a waiver. The tandem spaces on these types of mixed-use development, you'll hear from the planner, are becoming more common in the way that buildings are designed. But again, I don't want to testify, I'll leave that to the planner.
Understand. And another question is relative to the EVSE parking spaces,
Mhm.
which are apparently underneath overhang.
Just one is.
That's against fire laws, am I correct, Mr. Crane? You would know that better than I.
I'm sorry, Mr.
The EV spaces being located under an overhang.
We don't want that. Right.
Could you, for the public, would you explain how my question is relevant?
In simple terms, as my old captain would say, it's an unfriendly source of heat. Can't get it more simple than that.
No, I totally understand, and actually, I sit on a board for my own town, and we have the same discussions all the time.
Yes.
And we just actually got a good lesson a couple of weeks ago for all parking in a garage and EV parking spaces. And what we were told is it's not the charger itself that is the cause of fire, it's an EV vehicle that is the reason for it.
Got it.
And the reason being is, in most cases, it's not like a new car where everything works fine. It's usually an EV car that got into an accident or got damaged somehow, like it hit a curb or a pothole. So again, I know the concern is about the EV charger, but the concern is really the EV vehicles and,
My concern
You-
is a fire.
right, no, I
When
understand.
that happens in the EV vehicles, as you probably heard from your people, and I have heard from ours,
Yeah.
is that water that cannot be used to put that out. It has to be, the most practical is a blanket and so forth. Will that be provided to the person who parks there?
Not that I'm aware of. I can't answer that
I mean,
question.
it's a danger and it's a concern for me personally. Thank you.
Additional question?
Yes.
So you testified this is a sprinklered building.
I believe so. I'm going to leave that to the architect.
That's
I
an
didn't
architect
design the
question?
building.
Okay.
Yes, sorry.
I'll defer.
Any other questions from the board?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Denave?
So, technically, I mean, I think you're answering all of our questions, but my concern is that is definitely revolves around the parking, which in many ways has to do with the size of the building, right? And I don't envy your position of trying to cram enough parking in there, but I think there's a few factors that are troubling when you look at the parking. You're doing tandem parking, which really takes away your flexibility for their other tenants. So you're saying, we're going to take our 2 bedrooms and we're assigning them 2, right? So there's no flexibility there. You have a handicap spot. So how do you assign the other spaces? Or if they're not assigned, what happens with the retail? And then let me layer on the fact, what happens when a guest comes? Because my understanding is Mary Ann has no parking? Is that a no parking street?
So they do have parking, it's permit parking, and from what I could bring to the site, it's everything past actually the project site that has permit parking. So from our frontage, that is permitted as far as open parking.
So would your tenants be eligible for that parking?
I would say if it's open, but the intent is to have everybody park on the site.
So where do you think guests would park? And where do you think any retail would get parking on this site? If they can't fit on this site, where would they go? And that
Yeah.
would be my concern.
No, it's a good question. So, I mean, the beauty of a mixed-use development is that you have 2 different uses. And typically, the peak hours for the parking for retail versus residential don't always kind of coincide. I mean, there are sometimes, the evening rush around 5 o'clock that you do have residents coming back and the business is still open. But I would say during the day is when most of the residents are gone. You do have some that stay because they work from home. Obviously, that's the way that life works these days. There's parking along Stuyvesant. We do have parking along our frontage on Marianne Way. And I'm not too familiar with the municipal lot across the street, if that's metered or permit only, but that is an option too, if that's something that the municipality allows.
But just to follow up on Mr. Denave's question, in the earlier design phases, when looking at building placement on this site, correct?
Correct.
There were a lot of factors that were being considered.
Yeah, given the shape of the lot, you can see the lot has an angle along Stuyvesant Avenue. So putting a parking lot in the front obviously is not attractive from the visual standpoint, but also makes it not efficient to get rectangular parking spaces in an angled location. So essentially, twofold, moving the building to the front helps as a visual standpoint and I guess promote the downtown and the zoning intent, and also provides an area in the back that's square or rectangular to fit the parking.
Right, and the other issue was, in the earlier designs, looking at if you were to make the building not face the front, which is preferred under the union's zoning and also their master plan, was even if you did it on the side or an L shape, the problem is the lot width and how that affects the parking. So really, in fairness, reducing the footprint of the building doesn't really net the parking spaces. It would probably be more a factor of the uses in the building that would play as to a factor of reduction in the parking spaces. Would that be fair to say?
That's a fair statement, yes.
And then as far as the handicapped EV for ADA compliance, is there any place else that you could look at placing that? I mean, that becomes,
So that is a state requirement that one of the EV spaces has to be sized for ADA, and not signed for ADA, but sized for it. That's essentially why we put it next to the ADA. It just was the most efficient layout. Again, the other option would be to flip it to the other side. I believe we'd probably lose another parking space in doing so, unless we move both the ADA and EV across the aisle, which I don't think is ideal as well, with getting people across the aisle as well.
So,
so we'll have to look at that in a little more detail.
Yeah, I mean, I look at this as, the concern, I personally, it's the board's decision, but if you're going to go over the lot coverages because you need to maximize the parking, I get it. But my concern is being deficient parking before we know what the retail use is and not knowing where you can park. There's one thing if it affects the building owner and he has trouble renting because he can't, but it's the other thing when it starts to affect the neighborhood. And I'm not sure that we have an answer to where that overflow is going to go. So have you looked at, I guess to that end, because you can't really shrink the footprint of the building, have you looked at potentially changing the room makeup or the units or something to try to reduce the requirement for that? And I know that that's always painful, but that's the only other way to try to balance out parking. If you can't add more parking, you have to reduce the parking requirement, which would mean losing something within the building. So I know you have a small retail component, so that's not where you're going to lose it. It would be in the residential end. Is that something that's possible to look at?
I think it is possible to look at, and I'm not sure what time the board normally takes a break, if you do. But maybe if we had 5 minutes, I do think that could be something that we could strongly suggest to the applicant.
Right. What I would suggest is that this is my comments. I would want to see if the board was in agreement with that direction before you go through that effort. I'm not sure that that's something that, if they may be comfortable with the application as it is, I don't know.
Right. And I will say, we will also have the planner on, who does have experience with traffic as well.
Sure.
And he is going to go into more detailed proofs regarding that mixed use, which is not as uncommon for retail, and the types of retail uses that the board and residents may see in this, because this site, and again, I don't want to testify, would not be conducive for all of the uses that are permitted in the zone.
So, Mr. Donave, since you deferred to the board in terms of this recommendation, I firmly believe, and I think I speak on behalf of the board here, is that if there a 5-minute caucus and then coming back to us and saying that you're going to change the number of units, honestly, we can't make a decision or even a conditional approval just based on a 5-minute caucus and a decision and a recommendation put forth by you. We would need to see basically an updated site plan, how that would affect the parking, how that would affect the architecture, the entire site plan, basically.
And I understand that, Mr. Chairman, is what I can say, because one, I don't know what the applicant will say, number one.
Right.
But number two, there's many different variables there. So if one of the assumptions was, in talking to the applicant, that the building itself is not changing, but it's the makeup of the residential units that are changing inside of it, then in respect, the building and the site plan would not, quote, change. It would be the reduction in parking as a result of what's inside the building, which would be a change in the interior floor plan of the building. If that were the case, if that's what the applicant would be leaning towards, I would ask only because of availability of professionals. As you know, it's harder and harder, as you saw with the application before us, to get everybody out on a team on the same night, that I might want to at least get the planning testimony in and then hold off the architectural or something of that nature.
Well, I mean, we can still hear your other witnesses testify, but ultimately, if this is going to end up resulting in a modified plan, we're not going to make a decision based on conditions, so.
Understood,
Yeah.
understood. I just meant for purposes of the testimony. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
No, just a comment that it appears that you have understood and considered, in fact, that this application as first seen and testified about, and I know we haven't heard from the architect, is problematic in some areas. You've mentioned the fact that you have considered making the building smaller, changing the parking arrangements and so forth. It's a comment that I have concern, and perhaps others do as well, but I personally have some concern about the fact that we really would need to see a new plan that addresses the concerns. Just with respect, I'm sure when you say you will address them, that you will. We'd still need to see the problem in the new projections.
Understood.
Thank you.
All right. I actually have a bunch of questions. I normally defer to everyone else to ask their questions
No,
first
that's
before I do. Can you clarify on the site plan how many parking spaces have a width of 8 feet and how many have a width of 9 feet?
So it's a little tricky question because the ADA is 8 feet, and that's by code because it has an 8-foot aisle. So that's one of them. So there's 12. So the 11 on the east side, on this side right here, are all 8 feet, and then the ADA space is 8 feet.
But just for clarity, the ADA is compliant.
Yes,
I
compliant.
think the chairman wants to know which ones are undersized, requiring the waiver.
So per the ordinance, 11 are undersized. And
11 are undersized.
And 11 are conforming.
Okay. I want to go back to the tandem spaces, and you've testified that basically the tandem spaces would basically go to tenants of two-bedroom units, correct?
That's the intent. I think management can manage how those parking spaces are delegated. I mean, obviously, if they have a residence coming in, that's a family, let's say it's a husband and wife in a one-bedroom, and those two spaces are available, I think they can delegate it to them as well if they know they have two vehicles. And again, I think the thought is that it's going to be a nuisance, but the nuisance is on the actual tenant that knows what's going to happen and that they're going to get those two spaces. It's not a nuisance on another tenant or to the public.
And you, I guess you are aware, based on the engineer's letter, that the ordinance for the parking demand from a two-bedroom unit is 2 parking spaces, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So if you have 6, and I just also want to reconfirm here, is that you have 4 two-bedroom units, right?
Correct.
Okay. So from that, you have a parking demand of 8 spaces, but you have 6 tandem spaces. How can you reconcile that?
I'm not sure if that's something that needs to be reconciled. So one bedroom or the studio requires 1.8, which is essentially 2 parking spaces as well.
Yes.
So it doesn't mean that, a 2-bedroom can't have 2 other parking spaces on the site that are not tandem. I think it just depends on how they're delegated.
So how would they be delegated?
Again, I think those are the only spaces that will be delegated. I haven't spoken to the applicant as far as if everything's going to be delegated per resident, but essentially those would definitely be delegated. So when a resident comes in and they have 2 vehicles, they will delegate them to them. And the thought was the 2 bedrooms make the most sense right off the bat.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's already, actually, I do have a couple questions with regards to some of the black boxes that I see on the site.
Those are lights, the lights that are mounted underneath the canopy.
Oh, so those are lights.
Yes.
Are they just flat lights, or are they lights that kind of stick out from
Nope.
the ceiling?
They're flat. I mean, they might be a little thickness, but they're not hanging or anything off of a chain.
This might be more of a question for the architect, and I could always defer that question. Do you know what's the height clearance of those spaces?
I believe it's 9 foot 6 inches, but the architect could clarify.
Okay. My next question pertains to the 8-foot wide spaces. I think it's established that 8 feet is not the standard, correct?
That is correct. Not in the town and not per RSI is correct.
And so, let's say, for example, I drive a Ford Explorer, a utility vehicle. All right. By any chance, do you know what the width of a Ford Explorer is?
Not off the top of my head. No, I can't.
So according to Ford, it is I do believe it's 89.3 inches, which is about 7.5 feet. All right?
Measure to the rearview mirrors or to
Yes.
the body? Okay.
Yes, yes.
Just right there.
So if I drive and if I do a perfect parking job at an 8 feet wide space, basically from the edge of the car to the boundary of the line of the parking space, it's basically 3 inches, correct?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
It's 3 inches.
3 inches?
Right.
Yeah, with your math, yes.
Yeah. And let's say hypothetically, if there was another SUV that was parked perfectly to the left of me, the space that I would have from my car to that person's car would be 6 inches, right? So you would have a 6-inch clearance to get out.
Yep, your math is right.
Right.
Well, that's the clearance between the mirrors. When you open the doors, you have more clearance, so right.
Would you say, how much would you say is that?
I don't know. I don't know how wide the
Yeah.
mirrors are.
How much would you say is the standard clearance of someone getting out of their vehicle without them potentially damaging the other car next to them?
I would say probably about 18 inches, but again, that's not a number that I know of off the top of my head.
And so does the 8 feet wide parking space, is that sufficient to provide that clearance?
For, you're saying your scenario where you
Yeah,
have two?
yeah.
I mean, can it be done? Yes. Is it ideal or comfortable? I don't know.
I guess part of it is the person too,
Yeah.
is if someone is, let's say, clinically overweight or obese, would they be able to get out?
I don't know.
And obviously, it's a realistic expectation that everyone won't do a perfect parking job every time, right?
You're right.
So the scenario that I'm talking about of potentially 6 inches, 7 inches, that might be potentially less, maybe because someone did a lousy parking job, right? Okay. In terms, I want to go back to the parking spaces that are under the building. There are columns. There are like how many columns that we
There's
see?
3 within the parking area.
3 in the parking area. Can you just describe like the structure in terms of the building material and the thickness and the dimensions of them?
I can't. I can ask the architect, or you could ask the architect when
Okay.
it comes up. But
All right.
I believe there's cement. But again, I'm just speaking from my knowledge working with the architect in the past.
I will save those questions for the architect then. And ultimately, because you have 22 spaces, and granted you have the 2 EVSE credits, I know that gets to 24, but with all that in mind, even you have not even met the parking demand for residential only, right? Because the residential is basically 26, right?
26, yes. We're
Okay.
too shy. Yeah.
Now, I have another question. When we think about those 11 spaces on the east end of the property, by any chance, if we convert them all to 9 feet wide parking spaces, how many additional parking spaces would we lose, potentially?
I would say 1 at the least, and then we would have to widen that back parking by about 2 feet, or 1 foot, I'm sorry.
And is the intention of not doing that because by losing another parking space, it's basically an acknowledgement that it's way too below the parking demand, the deficiency between what you have now and what is the parking demand?
I don't believe that was the intent.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why are those spaces 8 feet wide then?
Given again that this is a residential use and not heavily trafficked, we thought that the 8 would be sufficient. There are other towns and cities that permit smaller spaces. I mean, that's why I said Union Township is 9 feet.
So you did mention about traffic. I did notice that in the engineer's letter that there wasn't a traffic study submitted. You can confirm that a traffic study was not conducted and was not submitted, right?
Correct, yes.
Okay, all right. Now, interestingly enough, in terms of the square footage of the property, so the building itself, if you add the 7,035 and the 3,930, you get around a little less than 11,000. So essentially, the retail space that you have is around 1141, right?
Correct.
So retail really would only comprise of maybe around 10% of the total square footage of everything, of the 3 floors combined, right?
I think that math is a little wrong. So the footprint of the second floor and
Foot-
the third floor are
Yes.
7,000 each, not
Exactly.
total.
Exactly.
So that's 15 plus another 4 or 19, It's about 19,000, I think, is the floor area, roughly.
Okay. Because you have 1141, right, square feet for the retail space.
Mhm.
The ground floor footprint is 3930.
Correct.
Second and third floor footprint is 7,035. So
Each.
I think
Each.
each.
Yes.
So it's even less than 10% then,
Yeah.
right? Okay. I do want to go and examine some of the calculations that you put forth for the stormwater detention calculations. Now, I was looking at your site plan, and I was looking at your calculations, and for me, it feels like there's some discrepancies in terms of the square footage that you provided, especially for the post-development here. So I just want you to reconfirm what, I know initially in the site plan you had, for example, for buildings, the square footage as 6725, but now you have here 7036. So I just want you to confirm what number should we rely on?
So I don't have the stormwater report in front of me, so if you give me a minute, I
Sure,
can,
no
I can
problem.
pull it up. I might need Wi-Fi access though, so. I mean, to be honest with you, we could go over the board. I know it's a question, but we could comply with whatever Mr. Nanavi reviews and make sure that it does comply with the ordinance in the town.
Well, yeah, so I'll just make a comment in
Sure.
terms of the discrepancy of the square footage then, is that, you know, there are discrepancies in terms of the site plan that we received and the numbers that we were provided for buildings, pavement, especially. And so if there is a discrepancy in what's in the site plan and what's in the calculation, obviously that would affect your weighted C in the calculation of the runoff, right?
Correct, and like I said, Mr. Nanavi would have the final say as far as reviewing it to make sure that we comply. And if we
Okay.
don't, we have no choice. We will comply with the stormwater regulations. Yeah.
Another part of my question with regards to the stormwater detention calculations is with regards to the runoff coefficient. I noticed here that you have for pavement that you set your coefficient at 0.85. What source and reference did you determine that to be 0.85?
So does the town have Wi-Fi login so I can look at the report itself?
Yeah, we do have Wi-Fi. I mean, it is. Well, maybe not to delay too much time
Yeah, I get your
here.
point that you're saying that there's some discrepancies in the stormwater report, and
Well,
that's fine.
yeah.
I trust you,
Yeah.
but we're not trying to say that we're trying to skirt the regulations.
No. I just want to make sure that
Yeah, I'm
we
just not
are
sure what the
dot our i's and cross our t's
Okay.
and making sure the details work here. Because I'm sure you're aware of the New Jersey Stormwater Best Management Practices Manual, and they provide some standards for runoff coefficients. And according to them, if you have a paved area, i.e. parking lots, roof, driveways, and et cetera, regardless of your hydrologic soil group, your coefficient is 0.99, not 0.85. So my question is, why is there a discrepancy, and what source are you relying for that runoff coefficient? And a difference of that would probably significantly affect your weighted C, right?
I don't know, yes, I don't know if it would be drastic, but again, I believe Mr. Denave had that in his letter, that there were some discrepancies.
Okay.
And I did testify that we would make sure that we would comply with those comments.
And obviously, if the runoff is different based on adjusted calculations, that means
The system will
that...
get bigger, yes.
Exactly.
Not a
Okay.
problem. And the applicant's okay with that.
All right. Those are my questions. Are there any other questions from the board?
Yes, just one.
Mrs. Perkins and then Mr. Denave.
Thank you. Just to point out that in the engineer design letter review, item 6.4, relative to the site triangle issues for the parking lot onto Marion Way, I understand that you are aware, as we are, that Marion Way is a one-way going into a dead end.
It's a dead end, yeah. I wouldn't say it's one
And
way.
you said that there could be some parking out on the portion that is not prohibited, because it's
Correct.
prohibited for some. So are you able to prove or show us that the site triangle with cars parked, public cars parked, would be safe and efficient?
Yeah, we could provide that on a plan as well.
So-
There is also another sign here that designates that you can't park from a certain portion to the corner, so the cars won't be able to park all the way to the corner.
So I guess I'm trying to ascertain how many cars, there's got to be spillover. This is a very small parking lot.
Yeah. We-
Visitors are not going to come and park in a space that's already occupied, nor dare park in somebody else's space, because that doesn't happen well. I'm trying to get a sense of how much spillover, since one needs to park 50 feet from the corner, and a great deal of the rest of the street is permit parking. It also gives a squeeze there, in my opinion.
Yeah, so we think we could fit 2 cars on the on-street along, two vehicles.
Just one more comment, and it's really a question. Have you looked at the other uses on the block and even gone out to them and see if they have excess parking? I know next door, I think, is a roofing company. That may not be the best, but 2 down, it looks like you have the Union Leader there, and it looks like a large parking lot that's probably underutilized. Is that something you guys could possibly look at as a potential answer to talk to them about leasing parking, or?
Sure.
I don't know that much about the Union Leader, but typically papers are underutilized for parking, and that may be a shared parking opportunity for whatever spillover that may occur.
Yes.
Definitely a possibility, yes.
I just have a quick question on the parking also. Are you anticipating, how many spaces are you anticipating having assigned for specific residents? For example, I know you said that the 2 tandems will be assigned to, the 2-bedroom apartments. Are the residents going to each have an assigned spot? Does that mean that 18 of the spots are all going to be assigned out to the units, or how many spots are you anticipate actually being assigned to residents, so that, because I'm assuming that only the residents will be allowed in those units to park there. How many spots are going to be left open for other parking?
Right, so in speaking to the applicant, since this will be a rental and not an HOA building, the idea was through property management to ascertain as tenants come in, number of vehicles, to see if it would make sense for the site, if they can have the vehicles, what the vehicle tag numbers are, et cetera, to make sure only tenants are parking on the site, and then assign those spaces to the tenants as they come in and out through the rentals. Again, the idea with the tandem spaces was those make the most sense to be obviously assigned probably to the 2-bedroom units because of the typical nature of a 2-bedroom. Again, as Mr. Manella testified, sometimes you do get a 2-bedroom tenant that does not have 2 vehicles, so maybe they don't need that space, but that was the idea behind the tandem spaces. And then obviously to make sure that the 2 spaces for the retail are kept open during the day for that mixed sharing of parking, which you'll hear a lot more when the planner comes up.
Any other questions from the board? Hearing none, questions from the public? Yes, sir. If you can come up to one of the microphones, you'll just need to identify yourself for the record, and we would need you to speak into the microphone so that you're on the record, sir. Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Carlos Pryor. I am a resident of Marianne Way. Things are getting out of hand there, and this was going to make it a lot worse. We, the residents of that street, have a problem getting out of that street to get onto Stuyvesant or cross it to K Avenue. It's almost impossible. A few times I have called the parking enforcement because we can't get out. And these people do whatever they want to do. Now, according to the original owners, homeowners of Marianne Way, they told me, some of them have passed away.
Excuse me, counsel, if I may, this is just the question
Yeah,
of the engineer
Yeah.
part of
Yeah.
the hearing. If he's going to testify, he would probably need to be sworn in.
Right.
We'd have to make sure we know what address he
I
lives
got
at on Marion.
Sir,
So-
can you limit your questions to the engineer? If you're going to have, there'll be a time for comment.
And by the way, you will still have time at the end to come back to the microphone and provide like a comment portion. But we would need you to get to like a question for the engineer.
Could you
As-
formulate
yeah.
your thoughts in the form of a question?
I wasn't prepared for this. I am not a lawyer or an
Oh, no, no.
engineer.
That's fine.
But I just want to say, you will have the time to come back up to provide any comments that you would like with regards to the application. Right now, we just have to do a Q&A period. It's almost like questions from the public on the app, on the engineer, and then we do the same thing with each of the witnesses. And then we call basically anyone up to provide comments.
I didn't see any of that. All I see was that he says they were going to eliminate the parking, the driveway.
Sir,
on the-
again, you need to ask the question of the engineer. Try to ask the question, your concern, ask the question, the engineer.
Maybe if you phrase your statement as a question to the engineer, would you like him to clarify something?
You're making it difficult. I am a resident of that street for 36 years,
Okay.
okay? Now suddenly we have a lot of problems because we allow a roofing company to stock his products there. The doctor has no parking space on that street. Now we're gonna get away with more parking space? And he's gonna block a driveway that was the main
Sir.
supply for that Wyker
Sir.
parking lot?
Sir, I want to make sure we're being very efficient with our time. You will have time at the end to come back and provide whatever statement that you want, but this is just a period now to ask questions for the engineer. And that's just how the meeting is run by law. So,
Okay, good night.
you can come up, back up
Sir.
at the end.
Okay.
Any other questions from the public?
No, they want to hear you.
Any other questions from the public? Okay, would you like to call your next witness, please?
I'd like to, if possible,
Yes, please.
I'd like to, if possible, have that 5-minute recess, just so if there are going to be substantial revisions, I don't waste the board members' time, and have you guys hear all of this if we're going to be coming back. So I'd like to have that 5-minute recess if I could, just to clarify some of the concerns we heard.
Sure, we'll grant a 5-minute recess. We'll be back at 8:51.
Okay, thank you.
here.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, again, professionals. We conversed with the applicant and the applicant's professionals. They've heard some of the concerns and comments that the board has made. We think it would be better, well spent of your time, since you're all volunteers, if we ask to be carried to your next meeting with no additional notice, so we can make some modifications, revisions. Of course, we'll resubmit minimum 10 days ahead of time as required by law, so that maybe we can take some of the advice that we've heard and some of the questions and come in with something that meets some of those concerns that the board and Mr. Chair have.
Sure. Mrs. Perkins, you have a comment?
Yes, I would like to just comment on the wiseness of the process you've just asked. What I think as a board member and the rest of the board.
Can't hear you. Speak
I'm
in-
sorry. Yes, my question.
Just yell at me.
No. My concern really, and the basic question here from the board relative to the concerns are, what would a compliant application look like? And that's what we would like to see when you come back with some additional changes. And-
Okay, just so I understand, I don't mean to cut you off. I
Not at all.
apologize if I did.
That's okay. No.
I'm not able to say we'll come back fully compliant, but if you're saying you'd like an idea of what that would look like, I think that's something we can talk about and see. As you've heard, and we haven't even gone down planning, there are some challenges with the site. Obviously, and I don't want to get into testimony, we feel there's some benefits to the site by closing off Stuyvesant's ingress and things of that nature, which we think will balance some of the variance relief we're seeing. But if I'm reading this board correctly, and I may be wrong, and I hope I'm not, I'm hearing a big concern with parking, and that's what's driving our conversation that we're going back with. And obviously, when you look at parking, that's going to make other factors come into play.
Yes, I think you understood the board's concern well, and I also think that the possibility of looking into the overflow onto Marianne Way, pardon me, is something that relative to the site triangle and how much parking would impact the residents, whereas most of it is permit parking. That's a traffic issue, and I hope that that'll be in your concerns as well. Thank you.
Understood, thank you.
Obviously, through my line of questions, there are profound concerns with this application.
I'm sorry, with the fan, I'm sorry.
Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Yeah. Obviously, with the questions that I have, I think you can infer that I have profound concerns about this application. And honestly, just based on what I've seen from the testimony, I can't possibly see how this would work as is. And so, is the idea of the application coming back as basically a brand-new site plan, potentially?
Well, I wouldn't call it a brand-new site plan. Typically, in my 30 years of experiences coming in front of boards, and I've been in front of this board, although it's been a while, is that we like to think that when we come in with an application and board members like yourself have comments and concerns, that when we go back to our plan and we make modifications, that we're doing, improvements that make the application make more sense. So I can't say it would necessarily be a new site plan because we haven't even had the discussion. We've only had a 5-minute recess. As far as new to me would be changing the complete design of the building, changing where it's sitting on the parking lot, changing the configuration of all the parking spaces. I think realistically, given what we've already done behind the scenes before we came here about different ways to configure the site that made more sense for the residential neighbor behind us and for the property next to us, and getting rid of the access off of Stuyvesant, you're still going to see a building in that front location that you do now. The question is, as hearing a former member of your fire department's concerned with the ADA EV, that obviously doesn't work. We're going to need to remedy that. Concerns about how wide an SUV is in those parking spaces, we're going to have to remedy that. So how does that get remedied? there could be a whole plethora of different ways it gets remedied, and I don't want to play engineer and architect because I get yelled at as attorney all the time when I do that. But those will be the discussions we'll be going back with.
Okay. I think with that, just to be fair to all the sides of the argument here, we can entertain to carry it over to the next meeting. But obviously, time is of the essence, and if the modifications are, as we say, not compliant or insufficient or in any way incomplete for us, I think we would have to take that discretion on whether or not we would be able to hear it at the next meeting or not. So it really depends on what you guys come back to us with and how complete that is.
Okay, so.
Is that fair?
I
Because you
think-
can't just come
I
back to
think
us
if
with a
I-
concept.
Well, no, is what I understand is what we come back with can't just simply be an exhibit, right? You want something meatier than an exhibit,
Yes.
you know?
We want a complete application.
Right, okay, understood.
So you need a motion.
So, Mr. Donave, any comments on your end?
That's why I had you.
Any comments, Mr. Donave? I thought you had
no,
something.
No, I'm fine. You know, I'll talk to their engineer. We'll try to clean up a few things on that end before the next meeting.
Okay.
And whatever you come up with a redesign, or, you know, whatever you work on, be happy to talk beforehand so we clean it up a little bit.
Thank you, that would
Yep.
be appreciated.
So I also want to be fair, since we're providing comments as a board here, I also wanted to open up comments from the public to state any concerns on the record. So comments from the public? Are there any comments from the public?
There you go. There you go.
You are the public. Yeah. And sir, if you could state your name,
Again,
if you could state your name and address for the record, please.
my name is Carlos Pryor, 1984 Marianne Way, so now you know.
Sir,
In Union, New Jersey, 07083.
So-
You need to
sir-
speak into the microphone.
yeah, can you raise your right hand? Do you swear the testimony you're
Too
about to
big
give?
for me to eat.
Raise your right hand.
Amen.
Swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I
You
didn't
swear-
hear you.
You swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I heard a few things here tonight that are wrong. I heard someone saying that they were going to eliminate the south side driveway of that property. That is the only access to that property. To get in. To get out, yes, they can get out through Marianne Way. Not to get in. So forget about that. It's in the books, okay? If you didn't see it, you should look a little closer. Now, right now, we having a problem with traffic on Marianne Way, a dead-end street. We can't get out. At times, we have to call traffic enforcement because we can't get out. My wife is very small. She drives a 1992 Toyota. Okay? It's a lot lower than these SUVs that you see these days. And she can't see because people park right on the corner of Marianne Way and Stuyvesant, and that blocks the vision. So it's nearly impossible. So I don't see adding more cars, more people to that spot in the town. To me, I do not approve of it. Here, I only see one more resident of Marianne Way. I don't know if he wants to come in. He's new there comparing to me. So I've been there my whole life. And why did I come to Union? Because Union was a good township. But if we let it go the way it's going, goodbye Union. I'll find a place somewhere else then. Okay, good night and thank you very much.
Thank you for your remarks. Are there any other comments from the public? I gather it's a way just to get some feedback as well from the public. Sir, if you want to come up, feel free.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Thank you for, giving us the opportunity to hear all this out. My name is Brian Scarpolini, 1988 Marianne Way, right behind the proposed block.
Okay. Sir, can you raise your right hand? You swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Well, to be honest with you, I came here more for information to understand, what everything was going through. I had the opportunity to, speak with some of the owners and the other representatives of the team. I do think that from my own experience and having issues with my other property on Roosevelt Ave with the Chaffee's owners, we understand that Union is trying to change and develop, but obviously as being a tenure in Union, we are concerned with Union losing its culture. But we do appreciate when, developers are taking the time to, really look into the details of what's going on and making sure that they're, minimizing the impact of those changes to the, residents in the surrounding areas. So with that being said, I'm looking forward to, seeing more information, seeing how you guys are working it all out. So far, I can understand, what they're doing to take measures, and I can appreciate that. Again, understanding that this meeting is my understanding is it's gonna go to the next month, right?
Yeah.
So I'll be here for that one, and if there are any concerns, I will bring it up. But, understanding Carlos's point and understanding other, citizens in this, we are all aware of what you guys are approving, and it is a little concerning, but we also see some of the benefits there. So I'm just hoping that we can see that in this area as well, because we definitely don't want it to be as congested as, downtown by like Centurion and stuff like that are, but I do think that they are taking the necessary steps to at least communicate with us and, kind of make sure that we're kind of at least all on the same page. But like I said, I unfortunately don't have any additional comments or concerns. I'm just looking forward to more information and, kind of speaking with them further to see, what we can do to make sure that everything is, again, amicable for everybody. So again, thank you for your time today. I do appreciate you guys, letting us hear this out and, taking the opportunity to show us, what we're potentially planning for our street.
Thank you for your feedback. All right. Any other? Yes.
Hello, my name is Sergio Fonseca. So I'm here, I'm one of the owners of the roofing company next door on the south side. I just want to express to the board and to everyone here, and I'll say the I do before I move forward.
Mr. Pasquale, do you need to swear him in?
Do you swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Yeah, so I do a lot of development in my personal job in dental facilities and healthcare. And I'm kind of the ideal tenant for them. I'm in my late 20s. I would be the one moving out of my parents' house and moving into one of these apartments. I think Union is moving in the right direction. We have these new great facilities in Union Center, and I'd like the other side of Stuyvesant to see that, because as you go past and closer to the Irvington side, it's kind of lacking a little bit. So this is a project that I'm enthusiastic about, I approve of. If and when the board and everyone gets on the same page with parking and everything else. But I just wanted to express, I think Union is moving in the right direction with approving projects like this. Again, we're investing in the youth, we're investing in things that people my age like, and these are one of these things.
Thank you for your feedback. Any other comments from the public? All right. I think with that, I just wanted to give the public a chance to also state it for the record. It might help in your considerations of, oh, yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Please,
Yep.
thanks.
Yep.
Eric O's, 1083 Mayfair Road, Union, New Jersey. We were just here recently with our group with something very, very similar. Do I need to be sworn in, or is this a comment?
Let's
Sure,
swear you
let's
in
do
just
it.
for the record.
Do you swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I will. The only comment that I wanted to make is that I see similarities, and I understand what this gentleman is speaking about regarding the changing of the complexion of his neighborhood. Maybe if the developer, the applicant, went through a little bit more effort in which would be expenditure, like for example, they talk about reducing some of the units. We all know that that's cost prohibitive to them, but maybe it's better for the community. Maybe there's a consideration that could be made for possibly underground parking. Again, that's another cost issue. But that could alleviate, that could actually maybe get rid of the variance. From what I looked at, the site itself seemed to be relatively robust, but if you take it all down below grade, now you could get more below grade, some above grade, and kind of balance that out. That may need to be investigated. So some creative ingenuity may need to take place here. Possibly, I was looking at the back-to-back parking, wherever we have that. I happen to be designing in New York City. We do attended parking. You can't depend on residents to follow the rules, and this is my parking space, but you got to move this one, so on and so forth. Maybe attendant works. You got to kind of think out the box when it comes to something like this, because you have a large development in an enclave of smaller developments, and you're going to get gentlemen like this that are disgruntling other gentlemen who are somewhere in the middle. Okay, he's in the middle, and I'm not sure where this gentleman is, but nonetheless, you know, we're not anti-development. Union, we're not anti-development. We're anti-inappropriate development. That is a statement that we made at our hearing, and that these gentlemen are trying to, ladies and gentlemen, are trying to make here. So I think that that needs to be considered. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? And so just to conclude, just want to make sure that you and the applicant has the ability to hear any of the concerns, whether from the board as well as from the public. Maybe that will help in terms of any further outreach and collaboration and partnership with the affected stakeholders, and hopefully when you come back to us, maybe it's an application that people can get on board with. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, when is the next hearing date that we're being carried to with no additional notice?
The,
I'm sorry,
Diana?
I couldn't hear.
She wants to know the
The
date
next
for the
May
meeting?
22nd.
May 22nd, thank you.
Yeah, okay. So with that, can I get a motion to postpone the matter until the next meeting of the planning board on May 26th? Second.
May 22nd.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Cohan. Is there a second? Seconded by Mrs. Perkins. Roll call, please.
Yeah. Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Mr. Cohan?
Yes.
Ms. Espinoza?
Yes.
Mr. Frame?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Perkins?
Yes.
Mayor Bowser?
Yes.
Committeewoman Terrell? Ms. Khan? Chairman Lee?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. There's no further new business, so can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Cohan. Seconded by Mrs. Khan. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Meeting adjourned at 9:11 p.m.
I didn't know who seconded that and who moved it.